Pope Francis warns Church could become compassionate NGO. Pope Francis says, "I would like all of us to have the courage to walk in the presence of God." So Pope Francis has warned the Catholic Church would become a compassionate NGO without spiritual renewal. In the Sistine Chapel Mass with cardinals on his first day as church leader, the pontiff said, "If we do not confess to Christ, what would we be? We would end up a compassionate NGO. What would happen would be like when children make sand castles and then it all falls down." Francis is the first Latin American and the first Jesuit pope. The term used by the Pope is the abbreviation often used for a non-governmental organization, such as a charity or activist group. The BBC's David Willey in Rome says the 76-year-old has already been swift to stamp his style on the papacy. Pope Francis is regarded as a doctrinal conservative, but he is also seen as a potential force for reform of the Vatican bureaucracy, analysts say. Analysis, David Willey, BBC News, Rome. Pope Francis will deal with the problems of his church, first of all prayerfully, rather than as a CEO coming in with a new broom. But the fact that the new pope will meet the media before anyone else at a special audience on Saturday morning shows a vivid awareness that prayer may not be enough to deal with the situation facing the Catholic Church at this critical moment in its long history. Francis is a Jesuit, a member of perhaps the most powerful and experienced religious order of the Catholic Church. The Jesuits are expert communicators, and it is significant that one of the first people summoned to meet the new pope this morning was Father Federico Lombardi, head of Vatican Radio, run for many years by the Jesuits and the Vatican Press Office. Under Pope Benedict, Father Lombardi was a mere functionary who had no direct access to the Pope. He could not pick up the phone and talk things through quickly. He just received orders from the Vatican Secretariat of State. That has now changed overnight. Shunned special car. On Wednesday night, Pope Francis endeared himself to the crowds in St. Peter's Square and underlined his reputation for humility when he asked them to bless him before blessing them in return from the balcony of the Basilica. The Vatican's account of his first hours in the top job on Thursday also emphasized Pope Francis' humility, describing how he shunned a special car and security detail provided to take him to the Vatican, traveling instead on a bus with the other cardinals. Following his first outing as Pope to the Rome Basilica on Thursday, Francis went back to the clergy house in a city center side street where he had been staying ahead of the conclave that elected him on Wednesday. He packed his bags, and then he went to pay the bill for his room so as to set a good example, said Vatican spokesman Father Federico Lombardi. He also broke tradition by remaining standing to receive cardinals' act of homage after his election instead of sitting in the papal throne. Father Lombardi said, on Friday, Pope Francis will meet all the cardinals, including those aged over 80 who did not take part in the conclave. On Saturday, he will meet the world's media at a special papal audience, an opportunity perhaps to set out some of his global vision, says the BBC's James Robbins in Rome. A visit to his predecessor, Benedict XVI, at his retreat at Castel Gandolfo outside Rome is also planned, but will not take place in the next couple of days, Father Lombardi said. The visit to Benedict is important, correspondents say, as the existence of a living retired pope has prompted fears of a possible rival power. Francis will be installed officially in an inauguration mass on Tuesday, 19th March, the Vatican added. Force of reform? The election of Cardinal George Mario Bergoglio surprised many observers when it was revealed on Wednesday. Although he reportedly came second to Pope Benedict XVI during the 2005 conclave. Few had predicted the election of the first pope from outside Europe in 1,300 years. Despite his reputation as a doctrinal conservative, Pope Francis is also seen as a potential force for reform of the Vatican bureaucracy, and analysts say that may have won him the support of reforming cardinals. The new pontiff will certainly come under strong pressure to reform the Curia, the governing body of the Church. He will also face an array of challenges which include the role of women, interfaith tensions, and dwindling congregations in some parts of the world. The 76-year-old from Buenos Aires is the first pope to take the name of Francis, reminiscent of Francis of Assisi, the 13th century Italian reformer and patron saint of animals who lived in poverty. So information about Pope Francis. He was born as George Mario Bergoglio on 17th December 1936, whose age is now 76, in Buenos Aires, of Italian descent. He is ordained as a Jesuit in 1969. He has studied in Argentina and Germany. He has become Cardinal of Buenos Aires in 1998, and he is seen as orthodox on sexual matters but strong on social justice. So Pope Francis, from a humble background in Argentina, George Mario Bergoglio has risen to the head of the Roman Catholic Church as Pope Francis. We look at key moments in his life and career so far. 1970s. Human rights groups have raised questions about his role under the Argentine military dictatorship of 1976 to 1983, and particularly about the kidnap of 2 Jesuit priests. The Cardinal's office has always denied his involvement. He told Perfil magazine in 2010 he had helped some dissidents escape the country. 1970s. And then the 1982, Pope Francis has been a strong supporter of the veterans of the war in the Falkland Islands, referred to in Argentina as Las Malvinas. He has spoken against attempts to devalvinize or gloss over the history of the war. 2001, the Archbishop of Buenos Aires became a cardinal in 2001 as the Argentine economy was in crisis. Speaking in Buenos Aires as thousands joined rallies against government austerity plans, he highlighted the contrast between the rich and poor people who are persecuted for demanding work. In 2005, Cardinal Bergoglio was seen as a strong contender to become Pope at the 2005 conclave to elect a successor to Pope John Paul II. He was reported to be the chief rival to Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, who was duly elected and became Pope Benedict XVI. In 2009, as Cardinal and Archbishop, he stood out for his humility, living in a modest apartment rather than his luxury official residence. In his sermons, he often stressed social inclusion and criticized governments which did not help those on society's margins of society, describing poverty in Argentina as immoral and unjust. In 2010, although Pope Francis is strong on social justice, he is extremely conservative on sexual matters. He voiced staunch opposition to gay marriage when it was legalized in Argentina in 2010. He said, "Let's not be naive. This isn't a simple political fight. It is a destructive attack on God's plan." In 2012, Cardinal Bergoglio preferred life outside the bureaucracy of Rome, and he criticized those who clericalized the church. In a sermon to Argentine priests, he attacked those who would not baptize children of single mothers, those who separate the people of God from salvation. These are today's hypocrites. And finally, in 2013, Cardinal George Bergoglio was not seen by the media as one of the frontrunners to succeed Pope Benedict, but he is now the first non-European pope for more than 1,000 years and the first from Latin America, home to 40% of the world's Catholics.
This is not easy because in walking, building and confessing,
ci sono movimenti
sometimes
che non sono proprio i movimenti del cammino.
there are movements that are not related to walking as such.
Questo Vangelo
There are movements that pull us back.
Prosegue con una
The Gospel carries on saying,
Pietro, che ha confessato Gesù Cristo,
there is a special situation. Peter, who confessed Jesus Christ, said, yes, you are Christ, the Son of God. I'm going to follow you. But let's not talk about crosses. This has got nothing to do with it. I'm going to follow you because there are other possibilities without the cross. And when we walk without a cross, when we build without a cross, and when we confess without the cross, we are not God's disciples. We are mundane. We are bishops, priests, cardinals, popes, everything, but not God's disciples. I would like all of us, following these days of grace, have the courage to walk in the presence of God with the cross of God and building church on the blood that Jesus Christ spilled on the cross, and confess the only glory of Jesus Christ crucified, and the church will carry on. I wish for all of us that the Holy Spirit, the Madonna, our Mother, will give us this grace.
Pope Francis says, I would like all of us to have the courage to walk in the presence of God.